Welcome to the Folkkeeper's Hearth, where timeless tales and ancient lore come alive. Gather round as we explore the myths, legends, and fables that have been passed down through the generations, keeping us connected to our ancestors and the old ways. Do you have your cup of tea? Have you pulled up a chair? It is time. Let us begin. Tonight at the Folkkeeper's Hearth, we're traveling north to old Scandinavian farmsteads, places where snow lies deep on the fields, horses breathe mist into the night air, and small, unseen hands keep watch over barn and home. In the folklore of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, people spoke of the Nisse, also called tomte or tomtegubbe, a small household or farm spirit. He is no higher than a child, dressed in simple country clothes, with that familiar red cap that has become a Yuletide symbol. By day, people might never see him, but by night, he sweeps the floor, checks the doors, tends the animals, and sometimes even finishes the chores that weary hands left undone. If the household is respectful, hardworking, and kind, the Nisse is a loyal, unseen farmhand. If they are careless, cruel to animals, or forget to show him proper thanks, he can turn mischievous, or worse. One of the most enduring customs says that at Yuletide, a bowl of warm porridge is set out for the Nisse, often with a generous pat of butter, as his yearly thanks for watching over the farm. Refuse him that offering, or cheat him of it, and the luck of the household may vanish with him. The Nisse feels very much like a land wight, or house spirit, a being bound to place, and to the fate of the people who live there. The bones of the written stories we have are very old, rooted in ancestry and that deep sense that the land remembers how it is treated. For our Yuletide tale tonight, I'll be drawing from a 19th century collection called Folklore and Legends, Scandinavian, compiled by Charles John Tibbitts. Tucked inside that little volume is a short section titled Tales of the Nisse, a handful of brief stories about these farm spirits and the humans who live alongside them. The language is very Victorian, and the theology is, of course, of its time. So, as always here at the Folkkeeper's Hearth, I'll be retelling and reweaving these tales in my own words, keeping the old story bones, but softening the tone and leaning into the older, land-based feel of the lore. So pour yourself something warm, settle in by the fire, and let's listen to 3 small tales of the Nisse. Tale 1. Short and long don't match. There was once a farm in Jutland, where a Nisse lived in the barn, and had done so for many years. Every evening, without fail, he received his bowl of porridge, good, honest fare, and in return he worked faithfully for the household. When the maids had gone to bed, the Nisse would sweep the kitchen, bring in water, and tidy up the hearth. In the stable, he'd comb the horses, check their hoofs, and make sure their hay was fresh and dry. Under his care, the farm prospered. One year, a new boy came to work on the farm. He was quick and clever, but also mischievous, and he took a strange delight in teasing the unseen helper everyone called the Nisse. One night, when the house was quiet and the porridge was waiting, the boy hid the butter at the bottom of the bowl, hoping the Nisse would think they'd forgotten him, eat all the porridge, and only then discover the butter. The Nisse came in, lifted his wooden dish, and frowned. He muttered. No butter tonight? He ate a spoonful. The porridge was tasty enough, but the slight weighed on him. After all his work, after all his care for the farm, they couldn't even spare him a pat of butter. His temper began to smolder. I'll remember this, he said. Instead of finishing the porridge, the Nisse crept up the ladder to the loft where the boy slept, side by side in the same bed with a grown farmhand. The bed was long, the boy was short, and the man was tall. The Nisse, still stung by the imagined insult, decided to teach the boy a lesson. He whisked off the bedclothes and looked at the pair of them. Short and long don't match, he said. He grabbed the sleeping boy by the ankles and dragged him down to the tall man's feet. Then he went round to the head of the bed, looked at them again, and said once more, Short and long don't match. Up the boy went, hauled by the shoulders to the pillow. Down he went again by the feet. All night the Nisse worked at his absurd task, tugging the boy up and down the bed, puffing and muttering, determined to make short and long fit together. By dawn, he was utterly exhausted. He stumbled to a window ledge, sat down with his short legs dangling out into the yard, and wiped his brow. Below him in the yard, the farm dog began to bark furiously. Dogs, as everyone knows, can sense such beings, and this one took a particular dislike to the Nisse. The Nisse, feeling impish again, swung his legs and teased. Look at my little leg! Look at my little leg! Upstairs the boy had woken. Realizing what must have happened, and still smarting from his rough night, he crept quietly up behind the Nisse. Just as the little fellow was dangling his leg and chanting, the boy gave him a sharp push. Down toppled the Nisse into the yard. Look at the whole of him now, the boy cried, as the startled spirit scrambled away from the barking dog, his dignity in tatters. So ends the first little tale, a Nisse with a long memory, and a boy who learns that teasing spirits can be a dangerous game, even if, just this once, he gets the last laugh. Tale 2. The Nisse learns what rest is. In another part of Jutland, there lived a farmer who also had a Nisse in his barn. This Nisse was a great friend to the cattle, and, less fortunately for the neighborhood, he had a habit of stealing fodder from other farms so that his cows would always be the best fed in the district. Under his watch, his master's animals grew sleek and strong. Now the farmer kept a young servant boy, and one night the boy followed the Nisse on his rounds. Together they slipped quietly across the fields to a neighbor's barn. There the Nisse took up a modest armful of corn, just what he thought he could comfortably carry home. But the boy, seeing how much grain was left behind, said, "Oh, take more. We can always rest if we get tired." The Nisse paused. "Rest?" he repeated. "What is rest?" For a creature who worked invisibly through the night, the word meant nothing. "Just take more," the boy insisted. "We'll find a place to rest once we're out of sight." So the Nisse shrugged and gathered a much larger load than usual. The boy did the same, and together they trudged back through the dark, each bent under the weight of stolen grain. By the time they reached the boundary of the farmer's own land, the Nisse's legs were trembling. "Here," said the boy, dropping his bundle on a grassy rise. "This is rest." They both sat down on the side of the little hill. The Nisse stretched his sore shoulders, letting out a long sigh, and felt the ache easing slowly from his limbs. "If I had known," he said at last, "if I had known that rest was so good, I'd have carried everything from that barn." Unfortunately, the friendship between the boy and the Nisse didn't last. Later, after some quarrel between them, the Nisse decided to have his revenge. One night, when the household was asleep, he crept to the boy's bed, lifted him up, blankets and all, and carried him out into the yard. There he laid 2 planks across the well and stretched the sleeping boy along them, thinking that when the lad woke with a start, he would roll off into the water and drown. But the night wasn't done with its mischief. Whether it was a guardian spirit, a twist of luck, or just the boy's own good balance, when he woke in the dark and found himself perched over the well, he managed to scramble to safety. The Nisse's revenge failed, and in the morning there was nothing to show for it but a shaken boy and a very sour mood in the barn. This second tale shows us another side of the Nisse, tireless when it comes to work, fierce in his loyalty to the farm, and yet childishly literal, learning rest as a new word and taking his pranks one step too far. Tale 3. The White Mare and the Wandering Luck. There was once a family who owned a beautiful white mare. She had been in the same family for many years, and unknown to them at first, a Nisse had attached himself to her, becoming the guardian spirit of the mare and the farm's good fortune. The Nisse adored this white mare. He brushed her coat until it shone, kept her hoofs clean and strong, and brought her the best hay and grain. As he did this, he often brought more food than she alone could eat, and so the whole stable benefited. All the animals flourished, and the farmer's circumstances improved year by year. In time, the farm changed hands. A new owner took over, and he was not a man to put much stock in old tales of spirits and housewives. When the neighbors told him that there was a Nisse bound to the mare, and that it was wise to treat the animal and the unseen helper kindly, he laughed it off. Very soon, the luck began to fade. The animals didn't thrive as they had before. Money seemed to slip away. The barns did not feel as warm and prosperous as they once had. Eventually, the mare was sold to a poorer neighbor, who was delighted to have such a fine animal, even if he could just barely afford her. Within a few days of coming to her new home, the white mare began to receive the Nisse's attention once more. He followed her to the poorer farm, for his loyalty was to her and to the luck she carried, not to the proud former owner who had scoffed at his existence. Night after night, the Nisse crept out to fill the manger, brush the mare, and bring bundles of stolen fodder, this time from the richer farms of the district. Soon the poor man's animals were plump and healthy, and his fortunes rose. The wealth that had once gathered around the first farmstead had quietly shifted across the fields. If only the new owner had been content to enjoy his sudden prosperity in silence, the tales say his family might have prospered for generations. But curiosity got the better of him. When he noticed how quickly his fortunes were improving, he decided he simply had to see the Nisse for himself. So one night, he hid in the stable, still as a stone, waiting. At midnight, in came the Nisse, staggering under a sack of grain. He fed the mare and the other animals, humming to himself as he worked. But then he paused and turned slowly toward the shadows where the man lay hidden. He had seen him. The Nisse looked at the mare, stroked her neck for the last time, and sighed. "I must leave you now," he said. "I've been seen." From that night on, the extra fodder stopped coming. The poor man's fortune leveled out, and once again, every farm had to rely on its own work and its own harvest. Here the Nisse appears almost like the spirit of luck itself, following the mare as a living vessel of good fortune, and vanishing the moment curious eyes intrude on his privacy. These little pieces from Charles John Tibbitts' Folklore and Legends, Scandinavian, may be short, but together they paint a vivid picture of the Nisse, a small, watchful guardian of the farm, Fiercely loyal but easily offended, hard-working but with a sharp sense of humor, and always moving within a web of reciprocity between humans, animals, land, and the unseen. They remind us that good fortune isn't just a random blessing. In the old lore, it comes through right relationship with our work, with our animals, with our neighbors, and with the spirits of the place, whatever names we give them. As the nights grow long and the year turns through Yuletide, I like to imagine that somewhere, in the quiet corners of barns and sheds, a small figure in a red cap is still keeping watch, so long as he is remembered, respected, and perhaps given a little something warm to eat on a winter's night. Thank you for gathering at the Folkkeeper's Hearth this evening for these tales of the Nisse. If you enjoyed this journey into Scandinavian Yuletide lore, you can leave a like, share it with a kindred spirit, or subscribe so you won't miss future wanderings among the old stories. Until next time, may your home be warm, your animals well guarded, and any Nisse who dwells near your hearth be kindly disposed toward you. Wishing you and yours a happy and healthy Yuletide season.